And you can see all of our inventory updated every Monday with new cars.
Not every car that rolled out of a General Motors factory was a masterpiece. Some were legends, some were disasters, and some were so aggressively, spectacularly ugly that you have to wonder what the designers were looking at when they signed off on the final clay model. Maybe they were tired. Maybe it was a Friday afternoon. Maybe nobody in the room had the courage to say, "Hey, that looks terrible." Today we're counting down 12 of the ugliest Chevrolet muscle cars ever built. Machines that wore the bow tie badge with pride, but probably shouldn't have worn anything at all. Number 12, the 1971 Chevrolet Camaro. Here's something that will upset a lot of people, and honestly good. The truth needs to be said. The second-generation Camaro started its life in 1970 as one of the most gorgeous American cars ever designed. Clean lines, aggressive stance, a long hood, and a short rear deck that looked like it had been sketched by someone who genuinely understood proportion. It was stunning. Everybody agreed. Then 1971 happened. General Motors didn't change the second-generation Camaro dramatically in '71. Technically, it was still the same car, but what they did to the front end should have been a crime with a mandatory sentence. The split bumper design got heavier, the nose got pushier. The whole front fascia started to look like the car was permanently making a face you'd make if someone handed you a warm soda. The elegant aggression of the '70 model got replaced with something that looked slightly confused about whether it wanted to be a muscle car or a personal luxury coupe. Then there were the federally mandated side marker lights, chunky little eyesores bolted onto the body like afterthoughts. Because they were afterthoughts, the interior lost some of its crispness too. The whole package started heading in a direction that screamed committee decisions rather than design passion. To be fair, the engine options were still strong in '71. You could still get a 454 big block under that hood and go frighteningly fast. But you'd be going frighteningly fast in a car that was already starting to look like it had eaten too many cheeseburgers. The diet had not begun. And unfortunately for the Camaro, the worst years were still ahead. Number 11, the 1975 Chevrolet Monza Town Coupe. Let's talk about the Monza, and let me be very clear about something before we do. The Monza wasn't marketed as a pure muscle car, but Chevrolet absolutely positioned it as a sporty performance machine, a replacement for the Vega that would bring excitement back to the compact segment. And for a brief moment, with the right engine and the right body style, the Monza Spider actually looked decent, almost promising even. Then someone approved the Town Coupe, and all that promise evaporated like rainwater on a summer sidewalk. The Town Coupe was the formal roofline variant of the Monza, and if you've never seen one, imagine someone took a reasonable small car and attached a roofline from an entirely different vehicle. A heavier, older, less athletic vehicle, something your dentist might drive. The result was a car that looked top-heavy, awkward, and vaguely apologetic about existing. The formal rear window, the boxy greenhouse, the pinched little trunk. It all added up to something that communicated the exact opposite of performance. Under the hood, Chevrolet offered a 2.3-liter, 4-cylinder engine that produced 60 horsepower in base form. 60. You could get more excitement from a ceiling fan. Even the available V8, a small block squeezed into that engine bay like a large man in a phone booth, couldn't save the visual disaster that surrounded it. The Town Coupe sold reasonably well because 1975 buyers were shell-shocked from the fuel crisis and just wanted something that got them to work without bankrupting them at the pump. But economical and attractive are not the same thing, and the Monza Town Coupe proved it definitively. Chevy had taken a chance and produced something that looked like a Vega that had given up and decided to become middle management. Number 10, the 1980 Chevrolet Camaro. Welcome to the malaise era. Population, sadness. The 1980 Camaro is a car that makes automotive historians wince, enthusiasts sigh, and original muscle car buyers wonder exactly where things went so catastrophically wrong. The answer, unfortunately, is everywhere simultaneously. By 1980, the Camaro had been strangled by emissions regulations, crippled by insurance pressures, and aesthetically wounded by federal safety requirements that forced designers to bolt on rubber bumpers that looked like they came from a bumper car at a traveling carnival. The front and rear of the 1980 Camaro had all the visual drama of a filing cabinet. Flat gray, inoffensive to the point of being offensive. The lines that had once made the Camaro look like it was moving at speed even when parked now looked soft and tired. The body had grown heavier and the proportions had drifted. The T-tops, which sounds cool in theory, were so prone to leaking that owners had to keep towels in the car. Not exactly the performance lifestyle Chevrolet had promised. And the power. Oh, the power. The base engine in the 1980 Camaro was a 3.8-liter V6 producing 110 horsepower in a car that weighed 3,200 pounds. The math on that is heartbreaking. Even the available small block V8 was producing numbers that would embarrass a modern minivan. This was a car that looked like a muscle car the way a Halloween costume looks like an actual astronaut suit. The suggestion was there. The reality absolutely was not. Number 9. The 1977 Chevrolet Nova SS. The SS badge has always meant something. It meant super sport. It meant performance. It meant that the engineers who built this car were serious people who took going fast seriously. When Chevrolet put that badge on the 1977 Nova, it meant none of those things. Not even a little. By '77, the Nova had been on the market in various forms for over a decade, and it showed. The body was boxy in the least interesting way possible. Not aggressively boxy, not purposefully boxy. Just boxy the way a refrigerator box is boxy. Something roughly rectangular that exists primarily to contain things. The styling cues that might have once communicated sportiness had been sanded down by annual revisions until nothing remained except a vaguely car-shaped object, wearing an SS badge like a participation trophy. The nose was particularly uninspired. Chevrolet gave the '77 Nova a twin-slot grille that looked like it had been designed during a meeting nobody wanted to attend. The rear end wasn't much better, featuring taillights that seemed to have been chosen specifically for their ability to generate zero emotional response. And the performance to go with the SS badge? The base V8 in the '77 Nova SS was producing around 145 horsepower. The muscle car era had delivered engines making 450 horses just 7 years earlier. In less than a decade, the industry had lost over 300 horsepower, and apparently its will to try. The Nova SS was the automotive equivalent of a band releasing a greatest hits album because they'd run out of new ideas. It looked backward, went slowly, and still had the nerve to call itself super sport. Number 8. The 1974 Chevrolet Corvette. I want to be careful here because some people genuinely love the C3 Corvette, and I understand why. Through most of its run, the C3 was a dramatic, curvaceous, impossibly low machine that looked like it had been sculpted by someone who stayed up all night listening to rock and roll. The early C3 models, particularly the 1968 through 1972, cars were genuinely gorgeous in an outrageous, over-the-top, American muscle kind of way. Then came 1974, and something died. Federal bumper regulations required all cars to withstand a 5-mile-per-hour impact without damage. The solution Chevrolet arrived at for the Corvette was a body-colored urethane front cap that wrapped around the nose and a similar treatment for the rear. These additions were technically clever. They were visually disastrous. The sharp, aggressive snout of the earlier C3 got replaced by a rounded, bulbous nose that looked like someone had pressed a thumb into warm clay and said, "Yeah, that's fine." The rear, which had previously featured one of the cleanest tail treatments in American automotive history, now wore a polyurethane cap that added length and weight while removing every last ounce of visual tension. The car looked like it had been softened, like someone had taken sandpaper to all the best parts. To make things worse, the '74 Corvette was also the last year for the striking chrome bumpers, meaning this transitional model was trying to blend two different visual philosophies and succeeding at neither one. The engine output was declining too, as emissions strangled the big blocks that had made the Corvette genuinely terrifying. By '74, the base Corvette V8 was producing less horsepower than some of those same engines had produced torque a few years earlier. A beautiful disaster wrapped in urethane. And I say that with genuine affection and also genuine frustration. Number 7. The 1983 Chevrolet Camaro Berlinetta. Most people who love muscle cars can tell you about the Z28. They can tell you about the IROC. Some can tell you about the Super Sport. Almost nobody voluntarily brings up the Berlinetta. There's a reason for that. The Berlinetta was Chevrolet's attempt in the 1983 model year to create a luxury performance Camaro, a grand touring machine for the sophisticated driver who wanted to feel sporty without actually going fast. a car that could play jazz at a reasonable volume. In theory, there's nothing wrong with that concept. In execution, the Berlinetta is where the concept went to die. The exterior styling made choices, significant choices. The Berlinetta wore a nose that looked softer and more rounded than the already soft base Camaro of the era. It had specific alloy wheels that were trying very hard to look European and succeeding only in looking confused. The overall silhouette was fine, as third-generation Camaros went, but everything Chevrolet added to distinguish the Berlinetta from its siblings made it look worse, not better. The interior was where things got truly strange. Chevrolet fitted the Berlinetta with a dashboard designed by someone who had clearly just discovered electronic gadgetry and couldn't stop themselves. There were touch-sensitive controls, electronic displays, and a general atmosphere of technological ambition that aged about as well as a Betamax machine. It felt like a science fiction movie prop, rather than a driver-focused cockpit. And the performance? The Berlinetta came standard with a 105 horsepower V6. This is a Camaro, a car that once came with a 454 cubic inch big block that could shake the fillings out of your teeth. Now, it was offering 105 horsepower and a luxury pretension package. If the original Camaro was a prize fighter, the Berlinetta was that same fighter, trying on reading glasses and asking about the wine list. Number 6. The 1971 Chevrolet Chevelle SS. Here's another entry that's going to cause arguments, and I'm completely comfortable with that. The Chevelle SS was one of the greatest muscle car nameplates in American history. The 1970 LS6 Chevelle is widely considered the absolute pinnacle of the muscle car era. 450 horsepower from the factory, devastating acceleration, an engine so violent that Chevrolet only offered it for a single model year before backing away slowly. It was everything. The 1971 version looked like someone had been eating the 70 model as a snack. For 71, Chevrolet restyled the Chevelle, and the results were polarizing at best and genuinely unfortunate at worst. The body grew larger and heavier, which would have been forgivable if the new proportions had worked. They did not work. The nose got longer and somehow also thicker, losing the taut aggression of the 69 and 70 models. The rear featured taillights that had been stretched across the full width of the car in a design that looked more confused than purposeful. The overall shape read as bloated, like a 70 Chevelle that had spent a year eating pasta and watching television. The Chevelle SS package still looked reasonably aggressive on paper. You could still get a 454 under the hood, though the compression had been dropped to accommodate the new lower-octane unleaded fuel that was entering the market. But even sitting still in a parking lot, the 71 Chevelle SS had lost something the 70 model possessed in abundance: menace. It looked like it was trying to be intimidating, rather than simply being intimidating. And in muscle car aesthetics, as in life, trying too hard is rarely a winning strategy. Number 5. The 1976 Chevrolet Corvette. (1976) was America's 200th birthday. The country was celebrating its bicentennial with parades, fireworks, and patriotic enthusiasm. Chevrolet decided to celebrate by producing a Corvette that made exactly 180 horsepower. Let that sit for a moment. 180 horsepower. From a car that had once been the rolling embodiment of American performance excess. The 1970 Corvette with the LT1 engine had produced 370 horsepower. In 6 years, Chevrolet had managed to delete almost exactly half the power from their flagship sports car, while simultaneously making it heavier. That's almost impressive in how wrong it is. But this list is about ugliness, and the 76 Corvette had plenty of that too. The C3 body was now well into its run, and the additions that had accumulated over the years were showing. The federally mandated bumpers from 74 remained, looking as awkward as ever. The hood styling had been revised in ways that didn't flatter the original lines. Chrome that had once looked dramatic now looked excessive and slightly desperate, like jewelry on a car that wasn't sure what it was trying to communicate. The interior had aged badly by 76 as well. Materials that had looked bold and futuristic in 1968 now looked simply old. The digital and analog instrumentation was a confusing mix of eras and intentions. Sitting inside a '76 Corvette felt like staying in a hotel room that had last been renovated sometime during the Nixon administration. Technically functional, spiritually defeated, the Corvette would recover. But in 1976, it had hit a wall and left a very unattractive dent. Number 4. The 1978 Chevrolet Camaro Z28 Pace Car Edition. The Z28 was back in 1977 after a 4-year hiatus, and enthusiasts were genuinely thrilled. The return of the Z28 nameplate meant Chevrolet was serious about performance again. The engine wasn't spectacular by classic muscle car standards, but the suspension was sharp. The handling was confident, and the third-generation body had real visual presence when it wasn't wearing too much additional decoration. The 1978 Indy Pace Car Edition wore too much additional decoration. When Chevrolet was chosen to pace the 62nd Indianapolis 500 in 1978, they created a commemorative edition of the Camaro Z28, that is, to put this diplomatically, a lot. The black over silver paint was actually clean and effective on its own, but Chevrolet didn't stop there. They covered the car in a graphic package that included large Pace Car lettering, Indy 500 graphics, additional striping, and a general atmosphere of sticker enthusiast energy that made the car look like it had been sponsored by a company that made stickers. The iconic T-top roof with its silver exterior was fine. The interior featured a houndstooth pattern that was trying desperately to reference the classic first-generation Camaro heritage. The engine was a 350 cubic inch small block, producing around 175 horsepower, which was genuinely decent for 1978. But you'd be going 175 horsepower worth of fast in a car that looked like it was wearing its entire wardrobe at once. Chevrolet offered the graphics package as a dealer-applied option, meaning you could buy an unmarked version if you wanted. Apparently, not enough people wanted. Thousands of these Pace Car packages were sold. Thousands of them still exist. And while collectors today appreciate their historical significance, there's no requirement to appreciate their aesthetic decisions. Number 3. The 1973 Chevrolet Chevelle Laguna. The Laguna nameplate deserves its own moment of examination because it represents one of the stranger creative decisions in muscle car history. General Motors, watching NASCAR's increasing focus on aerodynamics, decided to develop a more aerodynamically efficient nose for the Chevelle. The result was the Laguna, introduced in 1973, featuring a distinctive urethane nose cap designed to reduce drag at high speeds. On paper, this sounds like intelligent engineering. In practice, it produced a car that looked like a catfish had mated with a formal couch. The Laguna nose was rounded, protruding, and oddly organic in a way that clashed violently with the rest of the Chevelle's relatively square body. It jutted forward with an expression of vague determination, like a car that was confident about something, but couldn't quite remember what. The urethane cap was body-colored, which should have helped it integrate into the overall design. It did not help. It just spread the confusion over a larger surface area. To be fair, the Laguna concept was sound, and the aerodynamics did provide measurable advantages in NASCAR trim. Bobby Allison and other drivers had real success with the Laguna on the superspeedways, where that nose cone could cut through the air and provide a meaningful edge at sustained high speeds. Racing success, however, does not automatically produce attractive automobiles. The history of motorsport is filled with cars that went brilliantly and looked bewildering. The '73 Laguna belongs in that category. The performance on the street was also something of a letdown. The engines had been detuned significantly by '73, with emissions requirements biting deeply into output figures. The 454 V8 that was available produced around 245 horsepower, which sounds reasonable until you remember that just 3 years earlier, Chevrolet had offered that same engine with nearly double the output. The Laguna went fast enough for the street, wore a face that only a NASCAR engineer could love, and has spent the subsequent decades being quietly overlooked by Chevelle collectors, who would much rather talk about the 1970 model. Can't say we blame them. Number 2. The 1977 Chevrolet Corvette. We've already discussed the 1974 Corvette and its urethane bumper situation. By 1977, the C3 Corvette had been living with those bumpers for 3 years, and the design had neither improved with familiarity nor aged with grace. But the 77 model earns its own special place on this list because of the accumulation of problems that had built up over the C3's long production run. By 77, the Corvette's body was 9 years old. 9 years is a significant lifespan for a sports car design, and the C3 was showing every one of those years. Details that had looked cutting-edge and dramatic in 1968 now looked period-specific in the way that wide lapels and shag carpet look period-specific. You know exactly what era produced it, and that era has passed. The chrome detailing had multiplied over the years in a way that designers would have been better served preventing. There was chrome on the mirrors, chrome on the door handles, chrome on the rocker panel trim, chrome in places that didn't need chrome and probably didn't want it. The overall effect was of a car that had been decorated rather than designed in its final years. Someone kept adding things without removing anything. The interior of the 77 Corvette was a genuine low point. The dashboard design had been through multiple revisions, and the result was a cluttered, slightly desperate arrangement of gauges, switches, and padded surfaces that communicated confusion more than anything else. The seats were better than earlier C3 models, but the overall cabin atmosphere felt dark, heavy, and slightly claustrophobic in a way that didn't suit a sports car that was supposed to feel liberating. And horsepower? The base 77 Corvette was producing 180 horsepower, America's sports car. 180 horsepower. In 1970, the Corvette had offered 450. The decline from muscle car hero to malaise-era survivor was nowhere more visible than in the 77 Corvette, a car wearing 9-year-old styling, too much chrome, and a power figure that would make the early Corvette engineers reach for a strong drink. Number 1. The 1980 Chevrolet Citation X11. And here we are, the number 1 ugliest Chevy muscle car ever built. And before anyone sends an angry message, yes, the Citation X11 was absolutely marketed as a performance machine. Chevrolet positioned it as a sporty, driver-focused car for the modern era. Motor Trend named the base Citation Car of the Year in 1980. Chevrolet was very proud of themselves. They should not have been. The Citation was General Motors' attempt to replace the rear-wheel drive Nova with a modern front-wheel drive compact. The X11 was the performance variant, wearing ground effects, a specific wheel and tire package, and a sports suspension tuned for the driver who wanted to feel like they were doing something exciting, while actually doing something mildly spirited at best. It looked like a rental car that had been to the gym twice and was telling everyone about it. The styling was the particular kind of ugly that comes from a committee designing a car to meet practical requirements first, and aesthetic considerations somewhere much further down the list. The hatchback body was genuinely useful, perfectly rational, and entirely devoid of any visual drama. The ground effects that were supposed to make the X11 look aggressive just looked like plastic pieces that had been added rather than integrated, like tape-on glasses. Functional, not exactly inspiring. The engine situation was the final insult. The X11 came with a 2.8-liter V6 producing 115 horsepower. For a muscle car replacement, that was extraordinary mainly for how unextraordinary it was. The front-wheel drive layout also produced significant torque steer under hard acceleration, meaning the car would physically pull to one side when you asked for full power. In a muscle car, in a car that was supposed to excite you. Instead of feeling like a performance machine responding to your inputs, the Citation X11 felt like it was having an argument with the driver and winning. The build quality was also, to use the technical term, not great. Early Citations suffered from reliability issues that became industry jokes. The X11 trim didn't solve those problems. It just surrounded them in ground effects and called them sporty. What makes the Citation X11 the undisputed champion of Chevrolet ugliness isn't just the way it looked, though that was genuinely bad. It's what it represented. This was Chevrolet taking the spirit of the muscle car, a machine built around the idea that driving should be exciting and powerful and visceral and free, and producing something that looked apologetic, drove cautiously, and fell apart faster than the marketing department could write press releases. The Citation X11 wasn't just ugly, it was a symbol of an industry that had lost the plot entirely and was still confidently handing out maps. Here's the thing about ugly Chevys though. People love them anyway. There are Citation X11 owners who will defend that car to their last breath. There are Monzatown coupe enthusiasts who have found the exact combination of wax and wishful thinking to make those proportions work. There are even people who think the 1974 Corvette nose looks good. And honestly, that's the beauty of automotive history. It doesn't require universal agreement. Every car on this list has its defenders, its restorers, its late-night forum warriors who will explain exactly why you're wrong and they're right. And the muscle car world is a better place for every single one of them, even if their taste is questionable, especially if their taste is questionable. Subscribe because we have plenty more stories to tell.